Welcome to Down the Garden Path. I'm your host, Joanne Shaw, landscape designer and plant lover. I enjoy discussing down-to-earth tips and advice to help you seasonally manage your garden and landscape. And I also aim to bring you interesting and relevant topics to educate you all about the landscaping and horticultural industry. Hello and welcome to this episode of Down the Garden Path. Joining me today to talk all about the Perennial Plant Association is Ed Lyon. Throughout his roles in public garden administration and experience in the green industry, Ed has been as passionate about education as he is about horticulture. He has had roles in public garden education departments and served as director of 3 public gardens for 20 years. But he retired from public garden service in 2024, and he currently sits on the PPA, or the Perennial Plant Association, that we're here to talk about, as president-elect. Welcome to the show, Ed.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, that's great. So can you tell us about the 3 public gardens?
The ones that I worked at.
Yeah, that you worked at?
Yes, I was director. The first garden I was director of was called Rotary Botanical Gardens in Janesville, Wisconsin. I then moved to one of my alma mater for my master's degree, UW-Madison, and ran the Allen Centennial Gardens on that campus. And then the final garden that I retired from, that it was there for 10 years, was Ryman Gardens, which is part of Iowa State University in Ames, Iowa.
Wow, that's great.
All Midwest.
All Midwest. And now you are in Philadelphia.
That is correct.
Which is technically the garden capital of the U.S., is it not?
That's what they call it. Yeah, they used to advertise 30 gardens within 30 miles, but now they're up to, I think, about 38. So they've adjusted that. I don't remember quite, but that shows you how many gardens there are in a very small area.
Yeah, that is incredible. And I know I've been there, so I'm so excited to talk about some of the gardens that I got to see. But we could spend the whole time talking about gardens, but we are here to talk about the Perennial Plant Association. And I wanted to bring awareness of it. I've just recently, even though I've been in this industry a long time, come to learn more about it. I think you mentioned that last year, I think it was last year or 2 years ago, it was in Niagara.
2 years ago.
2 years ago, yes.
And last year was our 40th anniversary, and it was in Asheville. Yeah.
Asheville.
So when we do annual symposia, we move them around the countryside, like many national conferences.
Yeah, which is, I think, fabulous. But you also do them virtually.
Correct.
Yeah, so I think so I have not been able to attend in person or virtually. I do regret not doing the Niagara one. I'm actually from the Niagara region. So yeah, and it's so funny to move away from it to be closer to Toronto and to know that like where I grew up was really the hot spot for even education and stuff, the Niagara, parks and things. So yeah, but I do have a good friend and fellow designer who has attended your last couple of Perennial Association symposiums and has loved them. So definitely that's on my list. But I think it's a great way. And you have it twice a year, right? I know the spring one, and I saw there's another one in September.
No, actually, the national conference, there's just one a year, and it's always in July.
Oh, okay.
So what you saw might have been maybe some of our virtual educational programs and symposia. But the actual annual conference includes educational sessions, lots of tours. Where we're getting people into that area's growers, visiting landscape companies, private gardens, public gardens, anything at all to do with horticulture. And so we get to explore that area and everything it has to offer. So
Okay.
it really does several things for the participants. One is, of course, it's educational. But I think, and you being in the horticulture industry, I'm sure you can confirm this. One of the greatest things about organizations and conferences like this is the networking.
Hmm.
So you might go to an area, let's say you went to a conference in Pennsylvania, you might find new suppliers if you're a
Mm.
retailer. You might find a new wholesaler. So not only might you not find something that you didn't know you could utilize in that area, but then you're also networking with people from all over the country. And there's additional opportunities because they might also be the grower or breeder or whatever the case might be that that you may suddenly start doing business with them. So it's a great way for anybody interested in perennial plants in the industry to get together, network, learn new things, and see new things.
Okay. And I guess I should have started out with asking you to define, like, what is the Perennial Plant Association?
Yeah, that's true because as a horticulturist, I feel I have experience in all forms of plant materials. But one of the more confusing ones, especially to our public, is when we say perennial plants. What does that include?
Mm.
And starting out on this board, when you want to recommend like plants for an award or gardens to go to, they'll look at me and go, Ed, that's all trees and shrubs because that's one of my strongest interests.
Okay.
Perennial plants are exactly, if you're in the industry, you know what that means. That's the herbaceous plants that come back for you year after
Okay.
year in whatever your region is. So we don't deal with annuals or tropicals, woodies. It's, in fact, I believe it was the first organization to form to address perennial plants specifically.
Okay. And is it just for the industry, or are there aspects where you want to bring in, gardeners?
Absolutely. When we do our symposia, we make sure the whole local area knows about it. Groups like master gardeners, home
Mhm.
gardeners, uh, anybody is invited to participate. Obviously, they would have to join and become a member of Perennial Plant Association, but that's not a high cost, especially if you're rolling it into the fact that you're going to a symposium in the first place. But
Right.
no, yeah, anybody with an interest in perennial plants is welcome.
Okay. Okay. And do you see a role in the Perennial Plant Association in the development of new perennials? Like, do you feel like you, like in the sense of marketing them or seeing a certain niche like demand, native plants, that type of thing?
Yep, we address all of that. And one of the things that we do to help to promote is every year we have the membership vote and select what we call the perennial plant of the year. So
Mm.
that is a plant that people feel has stood the test of time, and that then helps some of our sellers because we will provide information for them to market that plant. So if
Mm.
they're marketing this special plant, that helps bring people in, for other plants as well. Yeah, we do, we help with organizations, we help them with their marketing, not, like a consultant group, but we're out there to help promote those perennials in any way that is possible for us to do it for industry folks.
Okay. And what is the perennial for 2025?
Oh, geez, I got them all mixed
Oh
up.
no,
Well,
perennial. I
oh,
know.
it's actually a grass. It's our native big bluegrass. This particular one was developed by a friend of mine. He's in northern Illinois. Intrinsic perennials, but it's called Blackhawks, and it is gorgeous.
Really? So is
As
it a big blue stem? Like, is that
it's the big blue stem, not the little
okay?
blue stem. So it'll be um, a lot of the plants are that I have seen aren't real mature yet. They might have 3 or 4 years. So
Okay.
I haven't seen how truly tall it can get with maturity. But the ones I've seen are about waist high to me, so not quite as tall. But the selling factor is it's very dark purple, almost to a black. The stems.
Okay.
The last garden I worked at, Ryman Gardens, one of the horticulturists in the garden, he planted one of the areas he planted it in a row. And oh my goodness, it just made sort of like
Wow.
a pseudo hedge of this rich, dark, purple black stems. It's a beautiful plant. And if you Google it, you'll come up or go to the Perennial Plant Association's webpage and we feature it there. In fact, on that page, you can go all the way back in history and see every plant that won the award. And I believe we've got out there at least next year's and possibly we're always looking 2 to 3 years out.
Right.
You know, there's probably at least one out there we haven't announced yet, so that will be a surprise.
Yeah, I mean, I think, okay, so, yeah, you said the National Perennial Plant Association, right? It's in Des Moines this year?
This year, and in fact, I'm doing double duty because, of course, you start those plans 2 years in advance.
Mhm.
I'm on the local regional planning committee because that's where I was at the time. And indeed, it will be in Des Moines. And we're pretty excited about we've got it finalized. It's on the website. If people are at all interested in what they might see when they go there, our speakers, our educational sessions, what tours will be on it. Another thing that we do that I just love because, as you mentioned, education is very important to me. We also give scholarships
Oh,
to college students. In fact, we just went through as a group and selected 6 college students that will receive a scholarship and offset costs to come to the symposium, which I think is just a great opportunity. I've worked with students for the last 16, 17 years because I was in university settings. And I tell them the single best thing you can do if you're going into the industry is start your networking now, start meeting these
mhm.
people. The people in horticulture are the most amazing people
Gosh.
to help young people or anybody get started. And it is so great to see those students and interact with them and the kind of work and stuff they're doing at the conferences as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think horticulture is such a collaborative industry, and it doesn't even matter if you're like talking about plants that I can't grow. Like, yeah, I'm good news. I just Googled the Black Hawk, and I think it's funny that kind of as a sports mom too, that it was developed in Illinois and its name is Black Hawk. But it's gorgeous, and as a designer, we are definitely looking for some new grasses to use. Good old Carl Forster. I love it. I use it, but it's gonna be we need to find something else, right? And I think color in the garden, and it works because it is so reliable. And that's what most gardeners, want something that, well, the homeowners that may not be gardeners, right? They want something low maintenance and easy to
Mhm.
look, and that's going to be successful. And you kind of can't beat Carl Forster for that, right?
That's
And
why so many commercial sites use it.
Yeah, exactly, right. But it is time to kind of move on, right? So this is great. And adding burgundy to the garden, adding that color also, you can't beat it. So yeah, and I'm happy to report to our listeners it's hardy to zone 3 to 9. So that's a pretty because it is like the big blue stem is a native grass.
It is.
So this
Yeah.
is just a cultivar of the native grass. But does that mean it's no longer native? I always get lost in that
Well,
science.
they've put a term on them now, nativar.
Right.
Um, and you're going to hear all kinds of controversy about how pure the native designation needs to be. In my opinion, it is a native plant. Many of our natives, or many of these plants that we call nativars, actually those plants mutate and change in nature anyway. We just happen to select this. So I don't think it makes it any less native that we went out and selected a particular strain.
I agree with you 100%. I know there's people that may not, agree with me, but yeah, I mean, I think, the purists, like there's that, but we're still talking about homeowners, right? That to me, that most gardeners, like they like to garden and they like to dabble, but it's not their life. It's not, they're going to spend, do you know what I mean? Like maybe in retirement, right? Like you said, you're excited to be, and I'm looking forward to that too. But for people still want to have time outside of the garden. So I think it's important to have plants that benefit, the insects and benefit, drought resistant, those types of things. But you're not having to be out there, staking it and peddling with it. And you know what I mean? Like it, so yeah. So I think, and because native plant, I struggle with the fact that, a native plants, aggressive plants, invasive plants, like those dotted lines are pretty, depending on where you are, of course, right?
Correct. Yeah. And that a lot of our thinking on all of that's going to change as climate changes. So,
well, that's a whole other thing, right? Climate has definitely
there's no
changed it.
one set answer at this point. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. And I know, I'm sure it's your experience as well. I know when I started designing, 18 years ago, there were plants, I think of here in, zone 5, and now we're 5B. Japanese bloodgrass was like, it looked so good. Clients were so happy to have it in their garden because it was burgundy, it was different, it was short, but it never survived the winter. Like it was, you were replacing it every spring. Well, now it's borderline invasive. Like,
it's banned in Florida. They can't even grow or sell it. So, and that's one of the things that we do when we introduce a perennial plant of the year. The discussion will include how available is it? We don't want to put the designation on something they can't get. Is it doing well in all of the various areas we're talking about? That's actually becoming enough of a challenge. There's been some thought that maybe we do a perennial plant of the year for each of our regions. Because to find one plant every time that's going to do well across North America.
And not be invasive but yet survive the winter, right?
But we've got the breeders, we've got the growers, we've got the people who've been trialing them as well as industry. So we're picking plants that the consumer will find readily available, will be hardy, will be tough, and right now, heat and drought resistant. So we've done all that work. And it's funny because I was one of those horticulturists that had to have every new plant and all the rare plants and everything. And I used to look and, one of the years and years ago, one of the winners was Gold Sturm Rudbeckia. And I remember as a gardener going, well, that thing's been around forever. It's nothing new. Why? The idea is most people wouldn't, I was a horticulturist. The average person doesn't know it's been around for years, and we should be promoting those plants that are the good doers, the ones that have proven themselves. So yeah, you have to look at it that way, and we're not doing the consumer or the people marketing any justice if we're picking the wrong plant.
That's a good point for sure, because I think I've wondered that a few times, like a few of the plant choices, and I'm like, why is that big? What's so special about that? We've had that. Yeah. So now that does make sense. So your work, so I think of like the common growers, like Proven Winners, Monrovia, that type of thing. So how is the connection or influence? Because if you're recommending or you're studying these plants, it must be in conjunction with the people that are growing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a technical point, Proven Winners is not a grower, it's a marketing group.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's why so many places have their pot. They're not one company, they're a marketing agent.
That is good to know, because there's been controversy in Canada about buying, or even the whole local thing. So yeah, so that is good to know. So
Yeah,
as far as
yeah,
what growers would other growers and yes.
absolutely. When we do this judging, when people come to the symposium, you're talking about the people who are the Monrovias, the Walters, the Spring Meadows, the really big name plant providers, breeders, growers, sellers. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. So this beautiful grass will be Black Hawk, you think will be available this year?
Oh, it has been available. Yeah.
Okay.
Again, we wouldn't put that designation on a plant that hasn't had some time in the ground. And of course, Brent, as the breeder of the plant, he probably had it in the ground a number of years and selected that one out of probably multiple ones as that current best black stemmed grass. So there's a long process that a lot of people don't realize going to even getting a plant to the point where we think it's a marketable plant.
Right.
There's hundreds of thousands of plants that never make it.
Yeah, that's kind of
So
interesting. Yeah, so the relationship between the Perennial Plant Association and the growers, I guess it really must be, it's an important one.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, every aspect of, like I said, whether you're a breeder, a grower, propagator, yeah, direct connect, and specifically to perennial plants, but it covers the entire industry.
Yeah. So what else would you like gardeners to know about Perennial Plant Association?
Um, I think one of the things they might find useful is the website, because we
Okay.
always want to know where we can get accurate information. I'm
Mm.
talking to somebody right now that can't stand social media because I think it's destroying horticultural education. So I try to sway my students, the people that I'm educating, away from places like that and give them the websites that actually have information they might use. So we do have different types of web-based programs. They might be geared more towards the professional, but if you're interested in that professional background and where your plants come from and such, it's a great resource for that. But I think mostly for gardeners, we're probably more of an organization that's working not really much with their knowledge. We're working to do great things for them, and they may not necessarily know
Okay.
that we're out there doing that.
Yes, yes. But I think it's a good way to talk about, I love educating people as well, right? And this is, how I do it. And I think, like you said, the amount of work, because the other thing will come up with people will be like, well, why does that plant cost so much? It's like, well,
Hmm.
because it wasn't made yesterday. Like it was, you know what I mean? We've had 2 years and or more, right? So I think it's good to educate that it's not like a recipe or baking bread, right? That we can, growing something, creating something in horticulture is completely different. So yeah, so I think that's an important thing to know about the many levels of horticulture that behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah.
and if the symposium is in your area in a year, you might want to check it out. I think if you were to go to one of them and you go through some of these wholesale houses and all these different places, does a plant even come to fruition in the first place? How is it selected? How is it bred? How is it propagated? Wait, you could come in and be part of that and see every aspect of the industry, because we make sure we're visiting all of those various businesses that get those plants to the consumer. Plus, a
Mhm.
lot of wonderful private gardens and public gardens as
Oh
well.
yeah.
In
Yeah.
fact, a lot of people probably would think Des Moines, there's 3 public gardens on that. symposium. And for the Midwest, and not a large city, that's a fairly large number of public gardens.
Yeah, I think so many big cities or even medium-sized cities do not realize the benefit of like garden tourism. Gardeners will go, like gardeners will show up, right, to support something, and I feel like Toronto's a bit lacking in that. They don't realize the benefit that people will travel. I've mentioned to you the garden flings and the different places I've gone, and I know other gardeners too that will go far and wide. And I always, when we do travel, like even to Europe or on cruises and stuff, I try to, and my husband's come around too, where he's asking the question as well, but visiting botanical gardens, like they're never on the, like, the cruise will tell you, like I think of the Azores, right? Like it's not very big. When that little stop, when you stop, there's not a lot to see. And we had a situation where because of weather, we arrived very late. So we weren't going to have a lot of time in this tiny place. And so a lot of the tours were canceled, the sightseeing tours and things, because you had to be back on the ship. And so my husband's like, well, did you just want to walk around? And I'm like, hold on a sec. I Google, yep, there's a botanical garden. It's within walking distance. And it was so, it was so cool. One, I think did cost minimal to get in. And but they were closing before we needed to be, like, they were closing. So we couldn't be in there for very long. And I was like, oh, it's okay. We're here. We might as well walk around. But they were literally like, oh no, you stay as long as you want. When you're done, just press the button on the gate. It'll let you out. And just remember to close the gate behind you. I was like, these are gardeners, right? Like, and certainly it was mostly trees and things, I certainly couldn't grow here. But it was so cool to see it. And, you're never going to go back type of thing. And we did that in Gibraltar as well. Who would have thought, there was a 10-minute walk from where the dock is. There is a botanical garden.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of always looking for those. And I think, I'm always surprised that they're not promoted more with those other touristy things, right?
Yeah. And all of the education I've done to the general public and to gardeners, I tell you have so many sources of education, from books to internet to you name it. The single best place, though, that you can educate yourself if you're gardening is in other gardeners' gardens. Get into as many of these private gardens and public gardens as well. But a private gardener is doing it on the scale that you're doing it.
Right.
And get into those gardens in your area, because they're the ones dealing with the same kinds of conditions that you are. And let me tell you, if you go into a garden and they're proud of that garden, they're more than happy to tell you their successes, their failures. I think you'll always learn more from those other gardeners who have had more time doing it than you probably will from, any other source.
Yeah.
So, and that's a great thing for these symposia. Is we get to get out once a year with this particular organization and see private gardens, public gardens, businesses. It's just a great opportunity to always sort of keep in touch with what's going on. One of the other big issues right now is research in horticulture changes constantly. I wouldn't even tell somebody how to plant a tree today and how I would have told them 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And the home gardener has a very difficult time keeping up with that. Yeah. Now we have social media bringing back stuff, that we would no longer recommend. So these are also opportunities you're going to hear. You're going to have speakers that are going to come in. They're going to tell you the latest research. I'm amazed every time. I've been one of those who abhors volcano mulching, and recent research shows it does not kill trees. Now, there's no reason to do it. The mulch
Yeah.
really needs to be around the roots. But the reason we've been telling people not to do it is that it will eventually kill the tree. Research has shown it's not true. These are the kinds of things that the public is not aware,
Yeah.
Any opportunity that if you're a gardener, a lot of these national organizations aren't always just specific to that organization. You can join, you can attend, you can learn.
And I think the virtual world has helped too, right? Because if you can't attend, but there's webinars and things that you can do virtually, like we're doing,
Yep.
and that wasn't available. I think pre-COVID, right? Like that really wasn't, you had to go and see it in person. You didn't necessarily, or you had to sign up and travel to a class or to someplace to learn about something, whether you were going to Toronto Botanical Gardens or Landscape Ontario to take a class here locally. And, but now so much more has opened up, I think, virtually. It has been one of those side benefits, I think.
Yeah, I've done classes, with sections and segments for both Fine Gardening Magazine and Garden Gate Magazine. So we now have garden magazines with experts who have created classes about, one of mine was on shade gardening, one was on basic design. So you don't have to, we don't have a lot of those local symposia where 200 people come in and sit all day in the dark, but excited because they're getting all this new information. Well, now we have the capability. You can just sit at home. You can go on to, one of those sites and pay a few dollars, and you've got an entire class by a professional in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like, so just to speak as far as like a landscape designer, I feel like we are kind of like we need to get out more, but I also feel like we are a valuable resource because, if a homeowner buys a plant on impulse at the garden center and take it home and next year it dies, they're like, oh, bummed, oh, well, I didn't make it. I bought the wrong plant, whatever. But if I put 3 of them in their garden, right, and a design that they paid for and an installer that they paid for putting it in, they want that, they want that plant to succeed. So and designers like me, we're like, we want the knowledge. We're not a grower, right? We're not a client, but we are kind of this niche. At least I mean, I'm not speaking for all designers. I feel that burden that I want my clients to be successful. I've written a book too to help them be successful, like to maintaining their gardens. I do a monthly newsletter to help them be successful. So I very passionate as much as I am about design that they are successful gardeners. And so I think us designers, we feel the pressure, man.
Well, and you mentioned landscape design. We also give out awards, and certainly there are awards for service and the individual people awards. We also give out landscape design awards, different categories for different price levels and commercial versus that kind of thing. And that's fairly prestigious too, so we're acknowledging and giving awards for exceptional work in landscape design.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I'd like to, for the growers to know that, and in the Perennial Plant, like that we're part of it, because we're, and when you said things like we're on the front end of things changing, like, oh my gosh, that if I have to hear another change in how we plant a tree, and I agree that it may not kill one, it does not look good. So despite of what you say, gardeners can say, it does not look good. And it may not kill the tree, but I know it because I have one in my neighborhood, sadly. And I've literally stopped because they have somebody like a contracting company that services their yard. And I've literally stopped the contractors to say, can you please stop doing that to that tree? And they're like, the homeowner, we know it's the bad thing, but the homeowner wants it that way. So the tree is growing, of course, roots up from the base, like from the taper of the tree, right? The tree is growing roots because for, 2 feet high, they've had mulch for, piled on it for, since I've lived here for 15 years. So
yeah, the silliest part of that is the mulch is supposed to be going down to protect roots. There are no roots where this volcano mulch is. Get it spread out there and over the roots. That's where it's going to be some good.
Yeah. And it does lead you down the slope of, not all mulch is created equal. And do you really need mulch? And, so
Yeah.
that is the thing too. Like, I feel like our industry is so connected. Because it's not just one thing, right? And weather is a factor, not only climate change, but how, we were talking before recording that how slow my spring has been, your spring, so where we were, and I was talking to a contractor, and I said, today, and I said, have you started? And he goes, no. He goes, I think this is the latest. He goes, I'm hoping to start next week, but I don't know. And this is the latest that they've, and that's, I know, more hardscaping, but it's all connected, right? Because after the
Yeah.
hardscaping goes in, that's when the gardens go in,
Yeah, and it's a huge issue, and now part of conferences like this.
Mhm.
One of our speakers is a climatologist. He is a climatologist from the University of Wisconsin. I've seen his talk. It's amazing.
Oh,
So from the aspect of what's happening, why, and what to expect, we also have speakers that are going to talk about, well, what should you be planning for the future? Should we be looking at plants more southern than where we are and starting to experiment with? So, yeah, a lot of what we do in the organization and at a symposium like this is there are some real issues out there, and we hope every year it's those timely type of messages that we can get some research presented and make people more aware.
yeah. Well, that's great. So you personally, you've written a book as well. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your book?
I can because it's not in print anymore anyway, so it's
Oh
not
no.
like self-promotion. Yeah, it was published in 2015, and it was specific. It was called Growing the Midwest Garden. At the
Okay.
time, Timber Press had done that for different regions of the country. I was going to call it Dirt Under My Nails, but then I found out it was part of a series and it had to be called that. But yeah, it's a sort of, I hope, a practical text on
Mhm.
how to garden. And there's some plants and like 300 plants in there as well. But yeah, it is now out of print. It
Oh,
was
okay.
probably too regionally focused to last
Mm.
a long time, but
Right, right. Now that you've retired, are you any plans to write a new one or?
it's been in the back of my mind for at least 3 or 4 years.
Right.
But the challenge is there was a point in time, about the time I was writing my book, we thought books were going to go away. I mean, we all know what's happened to publishing. But for some reason, some of these publishing companies really put even more effort into gardening books. So now the challenge is find something, an idea that somebody hasn't already written or
Mhm.
proposed.
Yes.
Because there's still a lot of gardening, really good gardening books coming out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think that is a benefit also of the fact that things keep changing, right? So
Yeah.
something, we talked about, 10 years ago is, plants, like there's new plants and there's new methods and there's new recommendations, so the fact it's almost like, food, right? Right? What was
Yeah.
healthy 10 years ago isn't healthy anymore. And so,
I, I'm
right?
I'm sure I could go back and read my book and find things that, I mean, that's been 10 years. There
Yes.
may be some things that changed in that 10 years.
Yeah, yeah. Although there's sometimes things that, so I'm gonna grab this for a second, the impulsively. Sometimes there's things that never change though. So I was given this gift of this book, and it's actually, and I've just dabbled in it, but it is 1935.
Wow.
I know. And I look at the line drawings and the pictures and the different recommendations is just it's just kind of amazing,
Uh,
right?
yeah.
So I think sometimes, well, I really do think what was old is going to be new again. Like the vegetable garden, what I mean? Who knew that we'd be
Yeah.
growing, after COVID, this boom of growing food. And so I feel like, when our grandparents had to grow food, we can go to the grocery store 10 minutes away, but people are still growing food and wanting to grow different food and things. So sometimes I think about that, Ed, as an old idea that might be new again.
Well, and I will say too, I read Rachel Carson's Silent Spring when I was 14. It made such an impact on me. It's probably what has gotten me to this direction. It still sits with a group of older books on my desk in front of me to always remind me the message that Rachel Carson had at that time and is even more applicable today than ever before. So you're right. There certainly are many, many books out there that will be timeless in what their message is, even though some things might have changed. The message is still loud and clear.
It's still there. So back to the Perennial Plant Association. You can see we both love to talk about plants. But so you're president-elect. So when do you officially take the reins, and what are the plans?
October. I can't believe it doesn't, because you're 2 years as president-elect, and I can't believe 2 years is almost up. It's
wow. Okay.
And
then how long is the term?
2 years.
Okay.
So if you're on the national board, you're 2 years as the president-elect, 2 years as president, and then 1 year as outgoing president. So if you make the decision to become one of the board officers, that's a 5-year commitment.
Okay. Yes, I was the president of our local garden club for 5 years. So yeah, and then past president, for a year. So I know, but it's obviously you're doing it because it's an organization you love and you support and want to support and want to help grow. Is that what is the president's role?
Well, it's a little different too. The group started out just a handful of people who started doing some symposium and turned it into an organization. But it got large enough and complex enough. We now have a group. We have a paid executive director and a staff that runs it. So I don't have to do a lot of the work that the executive director does. For the president, it's mostly leading meetings and contributing to ideas and such. But it's not one of those scary things where the president's taking care of a lot of sort of maybe some legal issues, and because we also have a foundation. You start getting into all kinds of more complex issues. That's when it's great to bring in an organization that's skilled to lead you, because we're a bunch of horticulturists. That's not our skills.
Yeah, definitely. So you said Des Moines is the symposium in 2025. Do you know where? You must know where it is in 2026.
Yes, it'll be in the Detroit area.
Oh, okay, in Michigan.
And there's some amazing businesses and gardens in that area. So
excellent. So that's great. So so it was really great to talk about everything garden. Isn't it fun to do? Just to learn from other people and to talk about it. So I thank you so much. One last question. Your favorite plant? I'm putting you on the spot.
Oh, I'm one of those presenters that I'll be up there on stage and I'll show 200 plants and the audience will go, didn't he have 20 or 30 favorites? I honestly have to say, I can't say that. Probably Lilium, the lilies. And that includes all of the species lilies, not just the larger decorative lilies. But at my Iowa house, which was just an average size lot, I had probably over 2,000 lilies. So I guess if you have that many, it must be a favorite.
Must be a favorite for sure.
But it's hard to ever say any group of plants is a favorite, because then you'll see something else. No, that's it.
Yes. No, thank you for sharing that with me. And was it exciting? So you obviously, by moving, you got to start a new garden.
I'm in an apartment.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You downsized to an apartment. Oh my, how was that?
It's an adjustment, but at the time that we moved with houses, there was no way that we could sell the house in Iowa and still have time to find something out here. It was the time period when you'd get 12 offers on a house.
Yeah.
So we didn't really want to do it. But it's turned out to be good because this is a great way of learning the area before then saying, oh, yep, this is where I want to be
Yeah,
permanently.
that's perfect. No, it's good. Yeah, that is true. That's a good way to look at it. So that's good. So your lilies will get planted somewhere soon in your new home when you choose
But
where
now
it's going to
the
be.
new homeowners got they got a pretty major garden. I mean, my garden was actually in Garden Gate magazine and on the front cover. So I'm
Oh,
not
wow.
sure. I hope they wait to let everything grow out because there's some really valuable plants in that garden.
Yeah, I know. That's so hard, right? Oh my gosh. Just wait. Be patient. That's how I started. Yeah, that's a whole other show. But yeah, by rototilling the previous owner's garden when before I knew anything as a young homeowner. So yeah, that's what got me here all these years later. So thank you so much, Ed, for
Thank you for
joining
having
me.
me on. Yeah.
And I will have all that in the show notes, the information about the symposium as well as the website. And I know, social media is what it is, but you do have social media as well, that the marketing team I'm sure manages. So it was great to hear more about it. And I'm excited about Blackhawk, I have to say. um, and yeah, so thank you again for taking the time to join me here down the garden path.
Well, and representing the group, PPA always appreciates, getting some promoting too. So
Excellent,
thank
excellent.
you.
And anytime you want to come back, I'm here. So when we get closer to the symposium or after, if you feel like you want to do a bit of a recap or talk about next year's, anytime, I would be happy to chat with you. So yeah, because there's always more that we can talk about, right?
That's right. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. And everybody, I hope you enjoyed learning about this new to us organization because I haven't talked about it before on Down the Garden Path. So I hope my listeners have enjoyed it as well. And I'd love to hear from you. So let me know. And once again, everyone, thank you for joining me here down the garden path.